welcome to We Never Met, the podcast where I have interesting strangers on every single week. Today we have
Steve Slagg.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. And so people would know you from what do you think? Like if someone was like, hey, I've heard of you before, what do you think they would know you from?
Kind of 50-50 chance.
Okay.
It's music. I play my own music. Mm-hmm. I have a singer-songwriter project, and I play with a band called Munar. And then we've played around Chicago for a few years. And then I've also done a lot of like LGBT like activism and writing in faith communities. So
it could be any of those.
Yeah.
It could be any, or, you know, maybe they just know you. They saw you on the street.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a big family. So
there you go. So when did you start with music? How young were you when you started sort of dabbling in it?
I remember my mom trying to teach me piano in like second grade.
Wow.
Because I was always sitting down and playing at it and making noise. So I think she kind of just wanted me to start making music instead.
I don't want to hear just the noise.
Right.
We want a song.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember a couple lessons where like she would start and then like the phone would ring and she'd be on the phone for like an hour and a half. And then she was like, I'm going to find you a teacher. So I think like second grade.
Okay. And did you immediately enjoy music, or was it something that your mom set up for you and you're like, oh, I got to do it because mom said I have to do it?
No, I was like kind of obsessed.
Wow.
It was like instantly just something I would spend hours and hours a day doing in a way I don't even now.
Yeah.
I play less now than I did probably when I was 7 or 8, but I was a quiet kid, so it was just nice to have kind of something to always be doing. So I really took to it.
Because like, what do you think it was specifically? You talk about being quiet a little bit. Was it like a way to express yourself, a way to just like get something out there? What do you think it was that like caught you about music?
Yeah, I don't know. I also just liked learning. Like I was really big into I would always ask my teacher for like more books, more like stuff to like learn and just
You're a
go
good student
through.
then.
Well, sort of. But then once I would like get just barely good at something, she could not get me to practice it anymore.
Oh, okay.
So it was like I wouldn't ever like master anything.
Sure,
I just wanted to learn everything. So I think that was part of it. Just like it was like one of my first little. Like I have a kind of obsessive personality about any kind of research mode. And that was like a little bit of that, a little bit of expression, a little bit of like nobody talks to you when you're playing an instrument. So it was like a nice way to opt out of like social interaction.
Yeah. So from that age then, was it just something that you did for fun? Did you ever like want to be like, hey, I'm going to take this more seriously and play for people outside of my home?
Yeah, I never really did. I was really private about it. I did a couple of competitions, but got really bad stage fright and like didn't enjoy competing or even just the pressure.
Sure.
But I would play for events and church stuff and weddings and funerals, and eventually I got into that a little bit more. But like, I think I had a type in my head of what a music, like somebody who was really serious about music was like, and I didn't want to just like uptight and like the classical, like conservatory student or something like that.
Just the little slip of their suit right before they sit on the piano.
And it was just like, well, that's not ever going to happen.
Did you go to school for music or did you go to school for something else?
I went to a school that had a conservatory, and even with that, I was like, okay, I'm going to feel it out. I'm not going to like. And then as soon as I took like one class, it was like, I can't handle this.
What was it about? Was it like just like too serious?
I think so. Yeah. Some of it was social, just like there's like a little bit more of a competitive edge. Yeah. And like people had worked really hard to get there. And like, I remember I had a piano studio class. Yeah. I just got assigned to a piano teacher because I wanted to take lessons. And I thought he was the best thing in the world. We had one lesson and I was like, this is amazing. And then we had a studio class. And as soon as the teacher left, everyone was whispering, and like it became really clear that we were in the lowest tier studio class. And they were all trying to get out of it and being like, how do we get a better teacher? And I was like, I fucking hate that.
This is the worst.
I'm so done. So yeah, just that kind of thing.
So what did you end up going for then?
I did an interdisciplinary arts undergrad major. So there was some music and English writing and sorry, this was like 10 years ago, so I'm trying to remember, and theology. Kind of combined for a like songwriting creative project.
Yeah. Like, do you remember way back? So when did you start like making your own? Because I know there's a certain transition of like copying and sort of playing music and learning it, and then like transitioning to writing stuff.
Yeah, it was in college.
Okay.
And it's still kind of surprising to me that I started writing songs. Like, I don't remember ever thinking I would like to start writing songs. But I listened to a lot of music. I had listened to singer-songwriter music throughout high school and just kind of I became like a music nerd the way you do in high school.
Yeah.
And so I think it just was enough of my language that like I just would, honestly, it was because I was taking, I think, piano lessons, and I would procrastinate the practicing I was supposed to actually be doing by writing my own stuff. And then I liked it enough that I sort of designed the interdisciplinary major around it so that I could do a project.
Yeah.
The school had a recording studio, and if I had a capstone project I was working on, I could use it for free. So, nice. So yeah, my first album was a senior project for college.
Okay. Wow. And so without any specific like formal training, how did you feel about like the songwriting process and like learning how to construct a song? Was it fairly easy for you? Was it difficult?
It was interesting. I think I understand now, having played music a lot longer. I understand more about theory and how songwriting works than I did. Like, my piano language was all classical. Like, I wouldn't sit down and learn like a Beatles song. And even when I did, it was like the extremely simple songs I would have so much trouble with, because it was just like I didn't understand how to just go from like one chord to another. Yeah. So it was a lot of like weird problem solving of trying to take the way I knew how to play piano and just like fit music and melodies to it. But in a way, it was kind of cool too to just sort of stumble around in the dark and figure stuff out.
Because I'm sure now it's a lot more concrete for you. Like, you understand more, after doing so many projects.
Yeah, I think so. It helps to play with a lot of people because everybody approaches music differently. So I'll play in a band or on a project and somebody doesn't know music at all, and then you'll go somewhere else and they have like scores or like jazz charts or like tabs that they made for guitarists, and they're like, oh shit, I forgot you're a keyboardist. So you have to like learn how to like use all of that stuff. And now I can kind of go with anything. But a lot of it was just showing up to something and being like, oh, I don't know how to read this, so I'm just gonna have to stumble around.
So from that early project that you recorded in college, you went by the moniker Youngest Son, right? It was the first one, and the first like three.
Yeah, three. Yeah,
until the most
an album
recent
and a couple mini albums. Yeah.
So why not your name up until now?
I've thought about that. I think I just thought at the time I was starting a band. Okay. And I wanted it to have like a band name. It felt weirdly like egotistical. Like egotistical to name it after myself. I also always kind of like didn't like the sound of my own name. I think a lot of people feel that way, but I just didn't want to be announced.
Well, you hear it so much, I
know, yeah. So I thought for like a year about a band name, and it was just so hard. And then I eventually came up with Youngest Son and decided I liked it.
Why Youngest Son?
So the first project was, it got into a lot of stuff about family. I am a youngest son. So it felt like a thing that sounded nice, because I think with any band name, you want to come up with something that people forget. It's just a series of syllables they associate with you. And everything else about it is kind of unimportant. Right. But I also liked that there was some like significance to it. It felt true to me. Yeah.
Because you talk about, you growing up in a faith community, being queer. How was that difficult growing up in that community? Like, from a young age, did you establish with like your family and your friends, like, this is how I identify?
Oh, Lord, no.
No, did you know though at a young age?
Yeah, I think I did. But I grew up in rural Missouri. Okay. Sort of conservative faith community. Okay. Not as much as some, like, kind of culturally conservative, sort of a politically conservative town, but also in a way that's kind of hard to pin down, because that's not entirely true. But it was a small town. Yeah, sure. And it was just, the 90s and the early 2000s. So I didn't feel safe coming out, even though I was pretty early on, like, in tune with, like, oh, I probably need to. Yeah. And so I was coming out and reckoning with all of that at Wheaton, which was a a conservative evangelical Christian college.
Yeah, it's right over here, right? In the western
suburbs.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what brought me to Chicago.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's like hard to, you ask if it was hard, and I mean, obviously it was, but like everything is hard. It's like hard to.
That's a specific type of hard.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's something that you're struggling with that shouldn't be a thing that people use against you or negative towards, you know, it's just part of who you are.
Right.
But it's like this whole cultural struggle because you don't know what's going to happen. So it's a different type of hard, I feel like.
Like at the time, it was just what I knew, and it was just, you're just kind of taking the situation and reacting to it.
Right.
Since then, I've looked back and been like, oh, there are so many ways that could have been a lot less hard.
Yeah.
That it's like I didn't even know to be upset about at the time, just because it was all I knew.
Did your friends and family react okay after the whole situation? Was it sort of like, did you build it up more in your mind than it was in reality, or was it actually a hard situation?
A little of both.
Yeah.
I ended up coming out pretty publicly in my college because of a lot of stuff. But it was like, if you are on campus at a Christian college, it's just like there are sometimes flare-ups of like people are just like talking about sexuality, and that was happening at the time I was at Wheaton. So I ended up coming out in a newspaper like interview as a freshman. And so it was like...
That's really ballsy, especially as a freshman. I feel like you're just getting in there. Yeah. You don't know that many people. Like, I was afraid to say a lot of stuff my freshman year. So that's
I don't think I would do that now. Yeah. I like am sometimes like, I don't remember the headspace
sure.
that led me to do that.
Yeah.
So in some ways it was easier than like having to have a million one. Yeah, exactly. It was actually sort of, if you know my personality, like a little cowardly. So it was like, thank the Lord, I don't have to like
tell everyone.
Yeah, just like the social anxiety of all of that would have been tough. And it was also kind of nice because it let people have their reactions in ways that I never learned about. Like if someone was reacting poorly, they did it in their dorm room. They were talking to their friends. Like, so people probably talk shit about me, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it sort of put me in a public place where, a little bit of the like tokenizing effect where I was suddenly the good gay who was like, I sort of got A-tracked through a lot of, I missed out on a lot of microaggressions and like
sure.
a lot of the bad shit that some of my friends went through.
Was that specifically because it was a more religious school, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it was just a weird time to be in college for anyone. But,
when did you go to school?
I was in college 2005 to 2009.
Okay.
But yeah, meeting friends who didn't have that background, it's like, oh, your college experience was so much different than mine.
Yeah.
You were able to date. You were able to, you know.
Yeah. That because that's a whole, like, I'm sure, slew of other issues. Yeah. You know, once that comes out, especially at a school. So how did you navigate that? How'd you did you still have a good time in school and like enjoy it?
I loved it. Yeah. I was in artsy communities. Yeah. I was friends with a lot of musicians and like theater kids, and I did improv, and so I had a really tight community. Yeah. And am fortunately socially oblivious enough in like small community sessions that I was sort of, I think, unaware of the like microscope that is on you when you're different in a community like that. Yeah. And yeah, I mostly just sort of, it was like a kind of an in to certain friendships. Yeah. Were, you know, just like if I would meet another queer person, it was like, oh, we have a lot to talk about. It was just very easy to make friends. Story. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to downplay it. Like a lot was really terrible, and there is stuff that like I'm still working through. It was like this is shit that I wish hadn't happened to me, right? Or that I saw happen to my friends that influenced me, right? That was really rough. Yeah, yeah. It's just kind of it was a little of both. Is that why you started writing about that and like publishing articles? Did you do that in college or was that afterwards? Yeah, I did. A couple essays, and then I briefly had a blog where I was writing about sexuality, faith stuff.
Was that sort of a reaction to some of those things that happened? Like
Yeah. It was really common.
Yeah.
During those years, it was like, especially after you got out of college, every gay Christian, queer Christian had a blog.
Oh, really?
They were all like publishing these like takes on stuff, and everybody had their little platform, and they were all meeting each other and networking, and it was just like, so you would be at a brunch or something, and it was just like everybody, you knew their handle and like their website.
Really?
It was very weird. Yeah, I met a lot of people online because we were just talking about like gay faith community stuff. Sort of like in certain like grassroots activist communities, you see that too, I think. So
right. So is that also because you have an album out? Was it July of 2019 or June?
June, yeah.
June. Called Strange Flesh, and was that the album that you were? There's a lot of autobiographical things that aren't really autobiographical.
Yeah.
And so does that go back to even like your college experience too, or is that more recent stuff now that people are dealing with close to you that sort of has a reflection on your life too?
I think kind of all of the above. When you know a lot of people who have similar stories to you,
sure,
it like almost gets to the point where you forget what happened to you and what happened to other people.
Yeah.
So there were certain things. I've always written a lot autobiographically because I like details, and I'm not a fiction writer. So if I'm going to use a detail, it's often going to be from my own life.
Sure.
Or the life of someone close to me. And yeah, it was just writing these songs. It felt like maybe taking the slightest zoom out to where it wasn't just thinking about me and immediate experiences I've had.
Yeah.
But like, what about this kind of tight-knit community that I've been a part of, where you're going to hear variations on a lot of similar stories, a lot of similar coming out stories, a lot of similar stories relating to how you relate to your family and your faith community.
Yeah.
And how can I tell stories that aren't just about me, but that would be true to anybody who had lived these things?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would find there are some songs on the new album that are directly autobiographical, like about a friend or a family member. And then there are a few where it's like, oh yeah, there's pieces of me in there, but then this reminds me of a conversation I had in like 2014 with some random person.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it does it was just like I opened the door to that set of topics, and it was like drawing kind of from my whole experience of just being part of those sorts of communities.
Yeah. Is that how you have traditionally always written songs? It's sort of like pieces from your life or pieces from other people's life that you see and sort of expand on that specific idea?
Yeah. A lot of it. Not always.
Yeah.
But I do like to kind of have sort of a topical theme, just to get me going, like to have something to just like be a starting point.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like in the past, I've just like completely cannibalized like moments from my family's life to the point where it's almost like, oh, I don't know if I can continue to get away with like putting my grandparents and cousins and parents in songs as directly as I do. Yeah.
Do you almost get to the point where you name them, or is it like not that direct?
Oh yeah. I've named people in a couple songs. I'm trying to do that less. Yeah. Like it gets a little squeamish.
Yeah.
I have like usually I'm sharing these songs with people, and I've never had anyone be mad. And if they did, I would pull it. I would stop performing it, and I wouldn't record it.
Yeah. But
there's still a point where it's like, no, I'm not trying to. I'll play a show to a bunch of strangers at a bar, and it's like, I don't want you. No, I don't. I'm not trying to play this right now.
Yeah.
And so I've started writing less that way. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Is there a specific like? How would you categorize, I guess, your music? Like, what would you, if you were pitching it to someone and being like, this is my style, this is how I perform or write or whatever, what would you say?
I usually say something like sad, weird singer-songwriter.
What's the sad, weird part?
Well, so like you have your sad singer-songwriters.
Yep, I know, yep.
And you have your weird singer-songwriters.
Yeah.
So I guess, there's like just the like Iron and Wine, Sufjan Stevens kind of world. And then if you go back to like the more classic singer-songwriters.
Yeah.
Your Leonard Cohen and like Paul Simon and all of them. But then there's also kind of the weirder fringe of like acquired tastes. Okay. People with weird voices and like weird approaches. And generally, if there's like a cult singer-songwriter, I'm obsessed with them. Okay. And so I feel like I kind of straddle that fringe. But if you're not into either of those, then like it's cool.
You might
just move on.
there's plenty of other ones. Did you do the Spotify Wrapped thing this year? Like, did you see?
Oh yeah. Well, so I use Apple Music, but they do like a similar thing.
What was the results like of that?
I was very surprised. One weird thing for me. So the other band I play in is called Munar.
Yeah.
And we've been Munar since 2011, I think.
Okay.
But there's another Munar. They're a like psychedelic band from Indonesia.
Oh, wow.
They're super good and have gotten really popular. And Spotify like frequently mixes up which Munar is which.
Yeah.
And so the Indonesian Munar has me listed as a similar artist.
Oh.
So I have a ton of listeners in Indonesia who probably think I maybe play in the other Munar.
Right. This is like your other band.
And I don't know if these people are like showing up, listening once, and then going like, screw this. But I don't know. It's
maybe
consistently.
You have to tour in Indonesia.
I totally would.
Yeah. So as far as like your most recent album, how was that a different experience for you? Because you talked about recording your first one in college, first full length process or album. How was it different now? Did you go to a recording studio? Was it at your house you recorded, or
a little of all, all of the above? So I worked with two musicians who I've played with for a really long time. Lee Ketch, who plays in Munar, and his wife Kit Shields, who co-produces every Munar album.
Yeah,
and they've basically produced their band's music for a while. And so when I was thinking about how to make this album, I asked them to produce.
Yeah.
And they'd never produced for someone else other than themselves before.
Okay.
But they said yes. And they have a home recording rig.
Oh,
so
cool.
we did some of the recording there and then some of it at a studio called Foxhall.
Where's that?
It's in Logan Square. Dorian Gehring was the engineer.
Okay.
So we did like kind of 50-50 between home recording and there.
Were those songs that you had for a while, or did you write them specifically for that project?
Yeah, my writing process is pretty slow. Like I revise for years before I decide something is done. So a couple of them were new. A lot of them had been like bouncing around for a long time.
When you talk about revising for years, how do you know when it's done then? Because you could presumably do that forever.
Yeah. I mean, none of them are ever done. I also will often change songs that I've recorded and just like start playing them differently live. But some of it is just a deadline thing. It's like, I have to freaking finish this. I have to like decide it's done. So that's some of it. Some of it is like leaning on other people and saying like, do you think this is done yet? Yeah.
So like you talked about before, like sort of social anxiety and stuff like that. So how is being on stage for you and like performing?
It's weird. I like performing.
Yeah.
I think I feel pretty comfortable on stage.
Yeah.
I get more nervous about banter than about playing my shows.
Like the in-between stuff, what you're going to say.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, even more than that, I'm nervous about like, you have to like check in with the sound guy and introduce yourself. You should meet the people in the other band so you don't come off as a dick.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
That's the worst part.
You got to remember who's who. If you call someone the wrong name, it's like that stuff stresses me out so much.
Yeah. So is there a specific instance where you tried to do some banter and it just didn't go over well, or you just got really nervous, or is it just always a fear?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, crashing and burning in banter is just like, well, won't try that again. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I have found, like, it mostly goes okay. If I try to rehearse too much, or if I'm like, I'm going to say this thing that's going to be so funny, it never works.
Yeah. So is there specific songs that you have changed recently live from your album?
I don't think any of these yet.
No?
I did have to. So we recorded some of the songs on the album ended up being really like involved tracks, like a lot of overdubs and just they became like very orchestrated. And so I had to relearn them live based on that as a just solo piano player. So a lot of music parts have changed, but I don't think I've revised anything like.
Yeah, because it's just you. Is it just you by yourself live when you play gigs, or?
I like to play that way a lot. Yeah. I do enjoy band gigs, but it involves just more like you got to put the band together and rehearse,
scheduling and stuff. And
I really like playing solo. It's just a lot of fun to have the freedom, especially if I'm playing out of town. It's nice to just throw my keyboard in my trunk and go. So it kind of, I do think that's kind of my preferred way to play, and then I try to do maybe like pull out all the stops and do 1 or 2 band gigs a year. Yeah.
Are you doing any touring in like 2020 next year?
I don't have anything lined up, but you want to? I'm like working on getting some stuff together.
Yeah. And you talked about like a slow songwriting process. So are you writing stuff for eventual releases later already?
Yeah. I'm working on newer songs. I'm still at the stage where I don't even totally know what if I have a topic or a theme, or maybe I'm not doing that anymore. So I'm still kind of in that early stage of figuring it all out.
Because your past releases or past albums, do you like it when your albums have like a story arc or like a similar collective theme, or do you not care and be like, oh, this song can be different than that song and whatever? Yeah,
all of them have been pretty thematically cohesive. Like my first album, I remember it was like I wrote it and I was like, this is track 1. And then I wrote another song and I was like, this is track 4.
Wow.
And I need like 2 more tracks that kind of get this part of the story. And it was all just like I had it all the big picture in my mind the whole time I was going. And I haven't ever done that since.
Yeah. That's got to be difficult though.
Yeah.
It's like writing a story.
Yeah. I don't know. It just really naturally happened with that one. And I think I've kind of expected it since. And it's not, it just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm open to like being less thematically tight this time around, and just kind of like seeing what happens. Yeah.
Is there a specific like reaction from people at your gig that you like have remembered to this day? Has there been any really interesting fan interactions or people in the audience from a song or from something you're talking about?
I'm trying to think if anything stands out.
Or if people come up to you after you perform and are like, oh man, that song really, because you talk about like some of your songs, you know, they're not necessarily about you, but there are similar stories around people in your life. And I'm sure there's people out there who also have similar experiences, you know? So I'm wondering if anyone has ever come up to you and been like, I can't believe I have had that exact same thing happen to me.
Yeah. I honestly, I used to kind of get pretty vulnerable on stage, and sometimes I would get pretty into a personal story, or not even necessarily a personal story, but something that would seem personal because the types of things I talk about are categorized in people's minds as personal. Yeah. So even if I'm not being vulnerable, it sort of feels like it. And it would often lead to sometimes kind of awkward, uncomfortable conversations where someone is unloading on you after a show and you're like,
I don't even know who you are.
Yeah, some stuff is coming out now. Yeah. You are getting some work done right here, and I'm just trying to get home. I need to be out of the venue by 9. Yeah. So like, there have been a lot of those. Sometimes it's really sweet and great too. Yeah. And
it depends how you frame it, you know, or how you phrase it.
Yeah. And like if someone, you know, sometimes you get people who are just like, I want to volunteer to you what this meant to me, which is really meaningful. Yeah. I've gotten some great emails. Yeah. So that's really nice. Like to have music that isn't necessarily being widely heard, but is really connecting with some people in ways that like make them take a moment out to tell you is really great.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the interesting thing about songwriting to me and music in general is like you could have a certain intent with a song. You could write a song and someone could listen to that song and be like, have a completely different perspective or like story, you know, and be like, oh, it meant this to me. And you're like, oh, I didn't even realize that was in there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Do you feel like your songs have those layers? Because I feel like based on the music I've listened to from you, like there's a lot of like, if you listen to a song, you'd be like, oh, I can see bass line is probably about this, something about this. But then you can also, there's so many other interpretations that you could go with. Is that intentional or is that just something that happens, you think, with music?
Yeah, I think it kind of inevitably happens.
Yeah.
I will often have moments where like someone will sort of tell me what my own song is about. And I'll be like, oh, you're totally right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use that now when I'm like introducing
explaining
this
it.
song. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also, even if you're being like, even if there's a specific autobiographical space that I'm exploring, that's going to bring up different things. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a different relationship with their parents and with their families. And so, I think it's just kind of inevitable. That's what I do with the music I listen to. Right. It's like I take it and apply it to what I'm going through at the time. Yeah. I think it's just what people do.
Yeah. So coming up this year, is there anything you're excited about specifically that's happening even with your band as well? We didn't really talk about that, but like, so what type of music does Munar play?
Munar is a power pop band.
Okay.
Sort of, like traditionally it's been like a guitar rock band.
Okay.
A lot of hooks. I sing harmonies and play keys. But yeah, we just actually played a show last night of songs that are going to be on a new album that comes out in the, I think, spring of this coming year. And it's a lot more like of a sort of dark, weird singer-songwriter album.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. It's really good. I'm really excited for it to be out there. It's been very fun to play this kind of new style with these same musicians I played with for a while.
How did that band form and when did you start?
It's so Lee, the co-producer of my album, it's his sort of baby. And he's played as Munar since, I think 2010 or 2011.
Wow.
And I've known him since college. Mm-hmm. So I was coming to a lot of Munar shows and playing my own shows. And eventually it was like, okay, let's just be in each other's bands.
Yeah.
So I think I joined officially in 2013 and I've been playing with them ever since. And just kind of the music's evolved. This will be the third album for Munar.
Yeah. So what's the difference in like a vibe? Like you play a gig with Munar and then you play your own singer-songwriter stuff. What's the difference in like the audience?
Oh, it's so different.
Yeah.
Like, with Munar, it's mostly a lot of rock shows.
Okay.
You're putting together a bill with other rock bands and it's like, the vibe is just different usually. Singer-songwriter shows, you tend to have like a quiet, attentive audience and they're like drinking wine. At a Munar show, it tends to be like rowdier and louder and it's at a bar and
Does either one make you more or less nervous to play?
I think I like singer-songwriter shows a little better.
Yeah.
That's just the vibe I am. I love playing like rock shows.
Yeah.
This is just so fun.
Yeah.
But I don't like hanging out at them. I don't like...
It's so much stimulus and so loud.
So loud. So much just awkward. Like, I don't know. There's something about the like, we're holding a beer, we're all looking in the same direction and we have to like mingle. That's just like, I just hate it. The vibe of, I don't know. But I like, have grown to really love it just because there's also an energy. Like I see why people get addicted to going to rock shows and playing them because the energy is just so cool. Yeah. It's so great. When the vibe is good, it's just like a bunch of people in the room having a good time together, which never happens at a singer-songwriter show. That is not the point.
Yeah.
So I've grown to really like it.
It's terrible though at like singer-songwriter shows, at least that I've been to, where like there's people talking.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that.
Right. It doesn't bother me as much. There's something kind of nice about like, I mean, it depends. Like if it's mostly quiet and you have like one person loudly talking, that sucks.
Really loud. And they're always so loud.
Yeah.
They're the loudest talkers.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah.
But there's also something kind of nice about just like idle chatter in the background and like glasses clinking. And it makes me feel like I'm serving a purpose. Like I'm just part of the room, part of the vibe.
Yeah. So when you came here originally, why did you stay? Like for college, and then why'd you stay afterwards? Did you really just like it? And
I had a good community here, especially meeting other musicians. Yeah. Just knowing people who were doing music here was a big draw. I don't love the weather, so I think I thought for a while I might leave.
Where? Like somewhere southern or something?
Yeah, or like the West Coast or somewhere with mountains.
Yeah.
But it was like, I don't want to just go somewhere I don't know anyone.
Yeah.
And like...
Start from scratch pretty much again. Yeah.
I didn't... Yeah. So I just kind of stayed. And eventually it was like, oh yeah, this is home now.
Yeah. When did you feel that? What do you think, just from the community sense? Like, I know enough people here and I know my way around-ish. So this is... Because I'm always interested when people like when that switch turns, you know, from a place you're living to a place that you feel like is your home.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I also, whenever you go to college near a city, everyone goes to that city and then slowly dissipates.
Yeah.
And then that happened and I was the only one left and it was like, oh shit. But then I weathered that. And I think once I got through that, it was like, oh yeah, I've earned this. Now people come back to see me.
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
cool.
the Chicago person.
Yeah.
And that's a cool feeling.
Did they go all over the United States or back to wherever their home is?
Yeah, people just like, it's that stage of like, oh, now I'm getting married, or oh, now I got the job that doesn't suck and I'm going to move to San Francisco or DC. Sure. Or, but then, some of those people eventually came back. Other people came, and it's nice to be in one place long enough that you see like the coming and going. Yeah. Especially in a place like Chicago.
Yeah. So where can people find out more about your music, what you do? You have a website. What's your website?
SteveSlagg.com.
Nice.
Easy.
And do you keep up to date? Is there like gigs and stuff on there for people to see and stuff?
And there's a sign up for the mailing list. Yeah, you can. I think there's even links to Munar and other bands and other projects I've worked on there.
Yeah. And do you send out any cool emails? Any? Yeah,
infrequently. Yeah. But like infrequent means, you know, you're getting good stuff. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's really thought through.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just spam.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. So go there. What about on social media, Instagram and stuff?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. Steve Slagg on Twitter. I think I'm Slaggity Slagg on Instagram.
Okay.
If you like talking shit about...
think of that. You're not 100% sure.
It's the one that's different, and I've gotten it wrong enough times that I have to like remember it. Yeah.
Man, awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It was really great. Good to meet you.